third Sunday all the third Sundays are social justice days, so let's have third Sunday as Social Justice Sunday. And George very kindly volunteered to come and to talk to us and to talk to the kids and to have soup afterwards and all sorts of things, and hopefully you've got a big car because there's a bunch of stuff to take back. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well,
and you can choose to speak for my sermon, which is 2.5 minutes, or Lorne's, which is longer. So all of which is to say, the choice is yours.
I am the one who thank you. I am so delighted to be here. May I just say, as I sat and heard you singing and heard the beautiful pianist and spoke to the children in the other room, something's happening in this parish, and I feel it. I really do today, and I'm not exaggerating. There's something happening here. There's something alive, and I'm so delighted and so happy to take part with a parish that I've known for many, many years, and you have supported St. Michael's for so many years, with donations, with money, with so many things. So I'm here for two reasons. Number one, to get to know the people who are behind the church, and they are all of us, they're all of you. Some of you are friends, but your history with the 97-year-old mission goes back decades. We were just speaking about you provided a van years ago. Perhaps it's good that I tell you a little bit about myself before going into the mission. I am fourth generation Anglican who came here to go to McGill and never moved back to Ottawa. I was always involved only as a parishioner with the church. I was a businessman and worked in the textile industry, and I sold my business 14 years ago, but I had been on the board of directors of St. Michael's Mission for many years. We couldn't afford, when I sold my business, I said, well, it's too early to retire, but whatever we will do. So you get tired of being a wanderer, the wanderlust that's in, you can only see one country and whatever. And one morning I woke up here back in Montreal after travel, and the radio had gone off, and there was a snowstorm, and they were stuck on the Dakari Expressway, and normally someone would say, oh, I'm lucky. I said, no, I want to be there. I want to be part of that. I don't want to watch the parade. I want to be in the parade. Therefore, we were in dire straits, and so I volunteered to become their executive director. That was 13 years ago, and I was going to do it for a year, and I'm still waiting for some young guy to come and take it over. But in the meantime, I would just like to tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. The mission is in very dire straits right now. I'm sure you've seen me on the news and in the Gazette and all over the place of how things are. Now, the reason for that are threefold. Governments, the three levels of government are cutting back. And they're cutting back for several reasons, one being that sustainable housing has become the most important issue right now. And so they've cut us all back 30%. Foundations, big foundations, the Burkes, the McConnells, the Hoggs, the Echoes, they are all cutting back and also giving to sustainable housing. And the third reason is we're going through a certain period of time now where there is a lot of apathy about homelessness. We've done all we can, get a job, come on, whatever. And yet, if you look at the dynamic of the population of homelessness, I was just speaking to the kids about getting a haircut. Because these people can't get a haircut. They can't, you know. And we have this eminent surgeon, retired, who's been doing it for 23 years, I think, Fred. He cuts hair. And he mentioned to me just recently that of all the people he cuts their hair, and that's not an easy job, believe me, but of all the people that he cuts their hair, at least 60% of them have a head wound. Now that could be from a street fight, a bottle. In other countries, they still perform lobotomies. So that's one of the things which causes that the homeless person today is psychologically unbalanced. That's the biggest of all problems. It's mental illness. And when people say to me, well, you know, homeless is homeless, but I'd rather support mental illness. Well, look around my mission. Look around it. There is a growing population of older men and women on the street. These may be the baby boomers, these may be, and whatever the reason, they're there. We do 1,000 meals a week. Breakfast, and then there's a little break at 10 o'clock, and then lunch at 11:30. We offer services like foot massage, clothing room. We have emotional help, psychiatric help. We have a food cupboard, which at the 15th of the month, you'll have at least 100 people in line. They live in a room, so they have no money after the 15th anyway. We also have a lot of presentations. We're doing one, an interesting fact, one of the biggest problems facing homeless people today is the desire to gamble. They all desire to buy a lotto ticket. You see them sitting at their table scratching away. And as I said to my staff the other day, you can't blame them, they're buying a dream. They're buying the dream that they may live in a house and buy a pair of shoes. The Inuit population in Montreal is growing rapidly. I'd say 20% of the population right now are Inuit. A lot of them here in the West Island at the new, in Dorval, at that new center for Inuit, which is a beautiful spot. And they get to know our mission through that. We do soapstone with the Inuit. We have art classes. We have these little seminars like the one on gambling. We have one on drug use. Something that not many people like to talk about, but it is existing right now, is the influx of opiates in the country. And certainly fentanyl is one of the biggest. We've had 2 deaths, overdose of fentanyl, one in the parking lot outside and one in the mission. We work very closely with the police department to have people. That's one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today. The involvement of the Montreal Police Department, although you may hear all kinds of stories, is probably one of the most valuable partner. They are most valuable partner for the mission. I was able to establish a police car. We used one, and it was only for homeless people. It was called EMRI, E-M-R-I-I. And those particular policemen were only, wouldn't go to a bank robbery. They'd get a homeless guy. And in the car, there was a social worker. There was clothing in the back and gum and boots and everything you need. And from growing from 1, we're now at 6 in Montreal. And the police chief called 2 weeks ago and said, George, in all the years I've been in business, for the first time, I see homeless people running towards the car and not away from the car. So that's something, a program that has been well worthwhile. The last program I'd like to tell you about is the warming center. A warming center is where you can come in and get warm. It's almost like a Tim Hortons at night, but you don't have to stay. You can put your head on the table, or you could, just sit and talk. We have a TV, and they can have soup and whatever. It's become far too popular. There are too many people, and it's very expensive to run. But I can tell you that this is our third year. In the first year, there were 13 deaths in Montreal because of the cold. Last year, there were 0. So it just tells me that it is work. When we do the breakfasts in the morning, and I won't bore you with the stats, but they are huge and increasing at a really, really rapid rate. And it's not to question why there is homelessness. Ours is to put an action to a reaction. The question is there, what are we going to do? As government grants and foundations cut back resources, we are obliged to look elsewhere for funding, and we're doing it 7 days a week. As we approach the end of this year, of course, we reflect on the trials and tribulations of Montreal's homeless. Although lack of financing is a constant worry, wonderful things can take place at my mission. They do. I just shared some with the Sunday school kids, which is what makes us rejoice. I'll just give you a story that happened. A guy who's been there 7 years and never had a house. And he would sometimes, when I don't spend a lot of time on the floor, but I do have breakfast with them once in a while. And he was there for 7 years. We got him a house. And 2 weeks ago, he came in. I hadn't seen him around for a while, and I see their files. And he came in, and he looked happy, and he showed me that for the first time in 7 years, I have my own room. I have a key. And he brought me a coffee, and he said, "You've been giving me coffee for all these years. I want to give this to you." And he says, "Oh, by the way, George, it's from Starbucks, or as we say on the street, $6. That's just one example of how Jesus is alive in our mission. And journeying with Jesus on the humble path of service may be close to the heart and will of God, but often it isn't the easy or the popular road. But there is this, and this is my thinking, and I can feel it in this church, and I hope it's your thinking too. The church will know that it is being faithful in presenting Christ if its arms extend to those the remainder of the world has forgotten and despises. I was thinking of that as I was coming here today, and that's why I wrote it down. The one chief complaint against Jesus was that he associated with and shared table and fellowship with outcasts and sinners. Consider that God's beloved Son stopped along the road for the most vulnerable. He had care for the weak and downtrodden. He touched the untouchable. He loved the unlovable, and he freed those in bondage. This too is our mission. In other words, the church needs to embody Christ, so that when the hungry are fed, the marginalized are welcome, and the destitute are loved, and the stranger in our midst is shown hospitality. Christ is presented and made known again in the world. I firmly believe that what I feel in this church is that Christ is alive, and for the homeless too. I want to thank you for listening to me this morning, and I want to thank you for inviting me. I am honored to be with you. Please visit St. Michael's whenever you would like to. It's a saving place. It could have saved me. I'm not sure. It may have saved me. But as the Dalai Lama said this morning on his website, be blessed and stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.